Добро вечер, јас сум Билјана Георгиевска, а вие во овој термин ја гледате програмата Клан Дебата. Денеска се навршуваат точно 9 месеци од почетокот на руската агресија во Украина. Континентот се уште се мачи и бара решенија за бројните последици: енергетската криза, инфлацијата, несигурноста, можната рецесија во некои европски земји, страв од уште поголема сиромаштија овде на југот од Балканот. Сето ова доаѓа во комбинација со предизвиците со кои светот се соочува подолго време: климатските промени, глобалното затоплување, сушите, поплавите и загадувањето. Во услови на скапи и некогаш недостапни енергенси, има луѓе што ќе речат: во моментов имаме полза од глобалното затоплување, барем сметките за грејење се пониски. Владите во регионот, пак независно од изгубеното време, сега уверуваат дека прават се за што полесно и побрзо поставување соларни панели на покривите, ветуваат и големи инвестиции за сончева и ветерна енергија. Но колку во потрагата по нови извори на енергија се води сметка за луѓето, за ранливите групи, за нивните работни места, за родовата еднаквост, за долгорочната добробит, за сите нас. Деновиве во организација на германската фондација Фридрих Еберт во Скопје се одржа форум посветен на социоеколошката транзиција, на кој европски и регионални политичари, експерти и граѓански активисти се обидоа да укажат на различни аспекти што не смеат да се изостават во оваа трка по нови извори на енергија, заради намалување на досегашната зависност од Русија и намалување на зависноста од фосилните горива, и тоа на правичен начин кон сите заедници во општествата. Во вечерашната Клан Дебата на овие теми разговарам со дел од учесниците на форумот, со Мартин Шулц, екс-председател на Европскиот парламент кој доаѓа од Германија, Јуте Гутеланд, пратеничка во парламентот на Шведска, со Висар Имери, аналитичар од Косово, и со Христина Спасевска, универзитетска професорка од Скопје. Има што да се научи, останете со Клан Дебата.
Mr. Schulz, the war in Ukraine found this region with a couple of, or a series of open questions, open bilateral issues between the countries. Are you worried that this situation is making the region even more fragile, more prone to the influences, foreign influences, mainly Russian influences? Are you worried about the stability situation of Western Balkan at the moment?
Yeah, not only about the stability here in the region, but quite clear if the war creates uncertainty and instability all over in the world, then it is quite logic that in a region which is traditionally fragile in the cross-border relations, in the relations between the different political groups, tendencies, religion, etc., that this is creating here worries, that's absolutely clear.
Kosovo and Serbia didn't reach any compromise. They didn't reach any step towards a compromise. Have you seen the Franco-German document for resolving of this issue?
No, I haven't seen the document, but I'm following intensively the German-French commitment to bring both sides, the Serbian side and the Kosovo side, together. The failure of yesterday in Brussels means, in my eyes, not that the game is over. Both are now returning at home, Albin Kurti and President Vučić. I think at the end the process of cooperation should not fail because of this in my eyes, ideologically overheated question.
According to the experiences that we had, even in North Macedonia and in neighboring countries, yes, the process is not over, but it's not easy at all. They were given only 48 hours not to start with penalties for the people who drive cars with Serbian registrations. What after that?
Difficult for
me.
On
the ground, I mean.
This is difficult for me to answer. My impression was that Prime Minister Kurti will do the utmost to find a compromise. The open question is President Vučić really prepared to come to a solution, or is he using the difficult situation to play, and he is a man who is very experienced in doing it, to play a game in disturbing a little bit the progress we made in the recent 2 years in the region? This is an open question, and if you will ask me in 48 hours' time, it is much easier for me to answer. I hope that also the government in Belgrade is looking for a serious solution.
I'm not sure that you are aware, but a lot of people here in North Macedonia say that Mr. Vučić is a very successful leader. Do you see him as successful, or how can you comment this perception?
For me, success in political life is to bring stability. He is a successful leader in creating situation with an open exit. He reminds me from time to time to those people in political life who are gambling, who are keeping all the options open to grab at the end the option which is the option in the own interest, the best in the own interest. I think in such a way he is a successful man. But if this success is a political success, I would say no. Political success at the end is not to think only about the own advantages, also to take into account that the compromise between my own requirements and those of my interlocutors, to find a way in the mid, this is creating always political success.
In your perspective, what are the real successful stories in the region?
Whenever in the region, courageous people have undertaken steps in the direction of the other side, the so-called other side. Whenever people were courageous enough and dared to tell to the own camp, to the own people, yes, also we must make concessions, then was progress. Whenever the radicals were in office or in power or prevailing with the message, our position is the right one and nothing else matters than our position, then the region was destabilized. My impression from Albin Kurti is he is such a man. My impression of Zoran Zaev was, and our Prime Minister Kovacevski is, these are such people. The President of the Republic here is trying to give that message to the citizens. Therefore, when the radicals prevail, the region is always destabilized.
North Macedonia has started the screening process. For some people, that's a beginning of negotiating with the European Union. For others who are a little bit more conservative, it is not yet the start, and the start would happen after the changes in the constitution here. The government is not sure at the moment whether they will have the numbers, necessary numbers in the parliament to support constitutional changes. What are your messages to the opposition here?
Yeah, I have not to give messages to the opposition, but I take note about the situation in the country, about the ongoing debate, and my experience as a long-serving European and as a former president of a European institutions, often, not for the first time here, often also in other countries confronted with such a situation. My advice is always to take into account the major interest of the nation and to assess that major interest of the nation with understandable short-term tactical steps a government or an opposition is making. What is on the table here? After the veto of France, now we had this Bulgarian veto, and the compromise was to include in the constitution this understandable, very difficult concession. But this is another step to overcome an obstacle on the way to a membership of the European Union. And I find, if I listen carefully to the allies of the opposition here in the country, on the European level, especially the European People's Party, they are not sharing the position of the opposition here. Therefore, my advice is listen to your European interlocutors.
But still, there are a lot of people which are not supporters of the opposition party. They are voters, but still they support their position that they are asking for some kind of guarantees that Bulgaria will not repeat the veto or another obstacle after the constitutional changes.
Yeah, I understand the position of these people after the Prespa agreement and the fact that the European Union, because of the French veto, could not stick to the promises made before, that people now fear we are now giving that constitutional change as a concession to Bulgaria. And are we not running the risk that nevertheless the Bulgarians afterwards will put their veto? I understand it, and this depends from the government in Sofia. In the negotiations, in the agreement made between the two governments, it was put as a condition of Bulgaria change the constitution, and I expect from the Bulgarians that they stick to their promise.
Are you optimistic about the situation in Bulgaria with 4 elections in 2 years and probably one round more at the beginning of next year?
I'm optimistic because I know that the Bulgarians themselves were often treated in a similar way. I witnessed as president of a European institution, the European Parliament, that Bulgaria, one time after the other time, fulfilled the criteria to join the Schengen area. And whenever they have fulfilled all the criteria, let's be honest, their external border protection of the European Union is quite efficient. So it is visible and perceivable that Bulgaria fulfills the criteria for Schengen membership. But whenever they have fulfilled, there is another country coming and saying, yeah, but you know, and we have still a visa problem or whatever. So the Bulgarians know what does it mean to fulfill criteria and then not to be awarded. And therefore I'm optimistic that the Bulgarian government will not treat North Macedonia as they themselves are treated by other countries.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Schulz, you were here participating at a forum with interesting topic, necessary energy transitions towards cleaner sources and everything in a just way, not to leave behind anyone in this process. This is a complex question for this region. Usually we speak separately by all these things separately. What is your message to the local authorities? How to bring this process easier and smoother?
Cooperation. This is my advice.
Cooperation between
different entities, local, regional, national entities, and between countries. And therefore I was, as hosting today, as chairman of the Friedrich Ebert Foundation, the conference here, I was really delighted to listen to the Prime Minister of North Macedonia and the Prime Minister of Kosovo. Both gave the same message. It makes no sense in solving the problems by acting alone. We must connect the region, and let's be honest, threat is enormous for ordinary citizens to lose the ground, stable ground for their daily life. But if in an energy cooperation, countries in the region can show to their citizens together we are stronger than alone, then the solution of this energy crisis could also be a contribution to convince citizens that cross-border cooperation between countries and nations is fruitful.
Will EU help? Germany will help this process?
Absolutely. This is absolutely necessary. And if you listen to the conclusions of Chancellor Scholz when he invited the regions to the Berlin process, to Berlin just recently, you saw that Germany and France especially are prepared to support the region.
Балканот е традиционално фрагилен регион, а дополнителната неизвестност што ја наметна војната во Украина го прави уште поризичен. Во вакви услови, според господинот Шулц, успешен во политиката ќе биде оној што ќе постигне стабилност за својата земја. И додека лидерите во соседството трагаат по стабилноста, Висари Мери од Косово, директор на Институтот за социолошки политики, сугерира да се искористат темите што обединуваат во општествата. Заштитата на човековата околина е една од нив, иако не ги погодува еднакво сите слоеви од општеството, вели тој во разговорот што следи.
The first thing that needs to be bore in mind is that climate change does not affect everybody in the same way. Although climate change is a global thing, it happens everywhere in the world, but then the damages caused by it are suffered more by the people who are not as well off as the others. And in this sense, climate change, and especially policies that tackle climate change, have to bear in mind that different strata of society have different and more pressing needs related to it. So in this sense, I think that this is one of the most important things to be brought to attention, is that we don't just need environmental policies, but we need environmental justice as well to go with it, in order to be sure, or to make sure that the poorer part of societies, and we have a lot of those parts in our region, all of our countries, and especially related to gender and the gender roles that we have in societies, we have to make sure that when we design policies in order to tackle climate change, supply cleaner energy, we have to be careful that those policies or help or aid mostly the parts of society that suffer the most. This is
what has been done so far in Kosovo in this regard?
I think that in the whole region, and especially in Kosovo, this is a very new topic. First, the idea of protecting the environment is very new in our region. And then related to that, we are still, I think, not talking or debating to the extent that it needs to be debated, the issue of environmental justice. So we're still in the part of the debate where we discuss about adding more renewable sources to generate energy, but we're still not discussing to the length of what we need to do in order for our societies to have a more equal distribution of wealth, and especially of means which are related to tackling climate change. For example, in Kosovo, we're still the biggest part, about more than 95% of our energy is generated from coal-fired power plants. We have a new government for 2 years now, which is talking a lot about the energy transition which needs to happen in Kosovo. And in this energy transition, we have to be careful. Two things to take care of them. One is, how is this energy transition going to relate to the particular parts of the country and particular parts of our society? And the second thing is, how are we going to make sure that the expertise and the knowledge of the people within this sector is distributed among different strata of society, and especially among the genders in our society? Because traditionally, and coming from the past, and we had a joint past in ex-Yugoslavia, energy sector was seen as this as man's work, as man's world in a way. So in this sense, the current government in Kosovo is actually doing a good thing, because in the investments in the energy sector, especially renewables, they have a special component which is directly linked to ensuring that more women participate in the energy sector.
Can the experts find enough room to send these messages related to these topics, having in mind that still the media and the public debates here in the region, not only in Kosovo, are full of politics, high politics, disputes between the neighboring countries, risks of instability, etc.?
That is one of the problems. We have so many political problems, and especially, again, I'm referring to Kosovo, that more often than not, a lot of very important topics are actually go under the radar. So they happen, but no debate and no discussion about that happens. I think that it is very important to note that, especially for multi-ethnic societies like Kosovo and North Macedonia, we have seen in Kosovo that environment and protecting the environment, protecting the habitat where people live, was actually the only common cause so far between ethnicities. The only protests that were organized by both Albanians and Serbs in Kosovo were actually protests to defend the rivers from small hydropower plants that were being built in parts of the
this
territory.
topic can be used as uniting.
Yeah, this is one of the very important components where the people in the region can actually go beyond their differences in terms of culture and ethnicity, and work together as people for a common cause. And I think that this has to be used politically as well.
The consequences are for everyone, of course.
Because consequences are for everyone, because nature has no borders. Political borders do not apply to nature. And I think that we are more or less similar societies in terms of I'm referring to Kosovo again, but when a society lives in relative poverty and where unemployment is very high, talking about the protection of the environment seems like a luxury topic. Because you're talking to people who still do not have the possibility to organize their means of subsistence. So in these terms, they think that talking about clean air and clean water is something that happens after we have gained a level of economic development which is going to provide for the well-being of the whole people. So I think that it is most pressing to start to talk about the environment as a basic human right, and as a very important factor in people's well-being. And I think that those parts of our region which are mostly affected by detrimental investments to the environment, they understand the best this sort of a topic, that at the end of the day, getting a job in an investment by private sector or whatever that has ruined your habitat, your environment, is not increasing your well-being. So in this sense, I think that the environment, the resources of the region has been seen only as potential for economic development.
Yes,
and
that's true.
In the race to get more foreign direct investments, where we competed all of the countries together, we forgot that if this race is going to ruin the habitat that belongs to all of us.
Do you think that there is enough cooperation between the neighbors in this region to reach those goals easier or quicker?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see that much cooperation. Like, for example, look at the energy sector. I mean, we constantly compete on the energy sector, who is going to produce and who is going to provide for more energy. And unfortunately, energy in the region as well as in the world has been sometimes used as a diplomatic means in order to ensure hegemony and political power over other societies. So in this sense, I think that this needs to be changed radically and very fast. If we want to protect what has left, or what has been left from our environment, we need to understand that there are particular issues where competition is going to ruin us all, and where solidarity and cooperation might save us all.
Климатските промени се видливи насекаде. Ако овде кај нас во ноември процветаа некои овошки, како да е април, Во Шведска, луѓето се повеќе стравуваат од преголемите жештини во текот на летните месеци. Дури умираат од тоа, вели Јуте Гутеланд, пратеничка во парламентот во Стокхолм од редовите на Социјалдемократската партија. Затоа социјо-еколошката транзиција е темата на нашето време, вели таа, зашто треба да се делува со многу повеќе енергија.
I think this is what's the questions of our time. And in Sweden, as in every country at this moment, the energy situation and the energy crisis after the war, also the transition when it comes to the global heating is very present. It is the big challenge of our time, how we can transist our energy system to be sustainable and also make sure that we are more secure, that we don't feed money into Russia at this moment. That's very present. And then of course the global heating, how we can make sure that we transist also when it comes to making sure that we don't continue with the pollution that is.
What kind of changes were accepted by the citizens of your country recently? Just to answer all of those concerns, not to feed Russia and not to damage the nature around us.
I would say that among the public, we have a big concern about environment, about climate. I mean, after all, Greta Thunberg came from Sweden, and she is still present and very present in the debate. But then, as in Sweden, as in every country, sometimes other questions become more present in the public debate in the short term. And for now, I would say that there have been other questions dominating the public debate for a while, but the climate is not pushed back the way it was before, because it can't. We see the report from IPCC on how the global heating is even worse than the scientists thought a couple of years ago. And also, I would say on the energy mix, we all know after this war that it is not sustainable to continue to put money into the war machine of Russia. So I would say that these questions, yes, sometimes they are put back, but they will come back, and they will come back with even more dominance. That's my true belief, and also what I've seen during my 10 years in the parliaments, so to say. Yeah.
The visible changes of climate here, for example, are that we still have double-figured temperatures during the day, even it's end of November, which wasn't usual before. Usually at this time of the year it's much colder and sometimes snowy. The farmers are really concerned that their crops were totally confused by the mild weather. What is visible in your country or in your part of Europe in terms of climate changes?
We have the same. We have the same, that we have higher temperature these days. Some of it is more normal change that can be. We can still have a cold winter. We have lots of snow at this moment. But if you look where on the scale the temperature is going, it's going up, and that is also influencing the Swedish climate. There are many examples. We have more forest fires the summers than we had before, and the Swedish people have been very much reacting to that, because that's extremely negative and dangerous. Up north we have lots of forest, or even in the south too, but I've seen it in the northern part that we have great forest fires in 2018, but also old people and people who are vulnerable are dying from the heat. We have heat waves in many of our countries, including Sweden, that we have above 30 degrees or even higher for more than 2 weeks. Like before, maybe we had it 1 week, 2 weeks, but now we have it for a long time. And some countries it's over 40 degrees, you know, but still our societies are not prepared for that. So elderly people die from it because we are not prepared. Our houses are not, we protect from the cold weather, not for the extreme warm weather, and we don't know how to adapt so quick. So that is one thing, and also something that's seen all over the globe, that people are actually dying from the heat, and it's a silent death. It's not like the extreme weather. Everyone is aware, oh, we have the storm, we have the water that is coming in, or we have, but the heat, that it's a silent death, but it is a killer already now. So the global heating is already now having lots of victims that we don't even speak about in the news.
In such situation, how can you explain the end of the climate summit in Egypt, COP27? Practically it was very difficult for them to come to a conclusion which will be in a direction of improvement of the things. Some of the European countries like France and Germany were very loudly, they say that they are not satisfied of the way how the climate summit ended.
And I think many citizens become tired. They hear that we should do more on the political level, and they see that some meetings says, oh, we did it, and then another year later it's like, oh, we didn't do it. So it's very turbulent in the decision-making process. And it is not explainable. It's not one thing, but there are combinations of things. One is the war. I'm coming back to that. I think that has affected the prices in a way that people get scared and want to protect their situation in a short term. And not all politicians draw the conclusion that the fossil fuel economy is dangerous also for the wallet of the people. So in the public debate, it's more about let's focus on that now and skip the climate, even though it's integrated. So we should focus on both together. That's the only way to be more sustainable. I think that's one thing. And then I think the talks ahead of this COP was not as it was not filled with this optimism. In Glasgow, it was much better up talks in front of the meeting. And I think to be able to succeed in the ambition on reducing the emissions, we need to have lots of talks ahead of the COPs, expecting the leaders to do something, saying to all of them, from Biden to my own prime minister, we expect you to do success here, and your climate ministers needs to be successful.
If they don't have that war, because the attention is turned towards the consequences of the war?
When the camera is elsewhere, the expectations become lower, and then they go there and they are happy with signing something, but they don't feel the pressure the way they do if the camera is very present the month upcoming to the COP. So I think that's one thing. But I don't want to sit here and be extremely negative, because I also know that one of the obstacles in Glasgow, where I was and was negotiating from the European Parliament, one of the obstacles were the question on climate financing, and many countries, developing countries, very angry about that question not being solved. And now we have a fund from the meeting in Egypt, and that fund might help developing countries to repair the situation that is.
Who is going to fill in that fund? Whose money? Are there enough sources?
It's never enough sources.
In this economic crisis?
No, of course. But the industrialized countries who have polluted so much since the industrialization, my country included, needs to understand that we have created also on the global scale the CO2 emissions that is actually hurting countries who have not polluted the same way. So it's about fairness, that these big polluting countries actually pay a fair amount to repair and in the same time lead technique development to reduce its own emissions, help the developing countries to do the same. And yet putting pressure on the developing countries, you also need to transition. We are giving money in this fund, yes, but you, in return, you also need not to do the same travel as we did, because that's not sustainable.
Shortly, what is your message to the citizens of this region, or to the political leaders as well?
I think many things are that I've seen here during this conference are a very good message. I mean, listen to the Prime Minister from North Macedonia and hearing about the steps that are taking, both to fulfill criteria on for being partners on the EU level, that is extremely important, but also on energy system and solar panels that are built to be more sustainable. I think we are very much hand in hand. We need to walk along together, do transition together, be partners, and hopefully in the future also be members in the same union.
Може би работите од шведска перспектива делуваат појасно или полесно изводливо, но социјоеколошката транзиција за земјите од Западен Балкан е сепак се уште нов предизвик и комплексен, како што признава професорката Кристина Спасевска од Факултетот за електротехнички и информацијски технологии. Еден од аспектите според неа за кои мора да се креираат политики е обуката на потребниот кадар, без да се остават на цедило веќе вработените во така наречената нечиста енергија. Слушнете го и овој разговор.
Концептот на правична транзиција, енергетска транзиција е сложен, затоа што ги опфаќа сите сегменти од нашето општество. Почнувајќи од моделот на реориентација на постоечките комплекси, традиционалните комплекси енергетски, до воведување на нови технологии. Кога воведуваме нови технологии, знаеме дека повеќето од нив веќе се автоматизирани и реално не е потребна голема работна сила. Од друга страна, традиционалните капацитети што ги имаме, термоелектраните, гасните електрани и другите такви, па и хидроелектраните, другите вакви објекти, тие во себе вклучуваат голем број на работници. И доаѓаме до прашањето што ќе се случи кога наместо нашите постоечки традиционални објекти, електрани, тие се заменат со нови технологии, например фотоволтаици, ветерни електрани, па дури и новите технологии на, да кажеме, на складирање на електричната енергија од обновливите извори на енергија. Според мене добар е концептот кога правиме транзиција од класични енергетски објекти кон нови модерни, дел од работниците да бидат реобучени за да останат да работат во тие објекти, но реално тоа нема да биде доволно. Нас ни е потребно во тие региони каде што веќе има термообјекти или друг тип на електрани да се отворат други капацитети, други фабрики кои ќе ги примат веќе обучените кадри. Затоа што во постоечките електрани не работат луѓе кои немаат знаење, инженерско, техничко знаење, туку напротив, тие веќе се обучени за таа работа што ја работат. Значи ќе им треба многу мали реобуки за да продолжат да работат во други компании.
Што се случи, да речеме, со луѓето што работеле на стариот ископ за јаглен во Осломе, кој сега е покриен со фотоволтаици? Дали се тие преселени во другите ископи за да продолжат со истата работа, или некој од нив требаше да биде реобучен за да служи на фотоволтаичната централа?
Реално немам директна информација што се случува. Знам дека ископите во Осломе и полека се затвараат, се градат нови електрани таму, фотоволтаични електрани. Реално верувам дека се уште тие луѓе работат во термоелектраната Осломе. Немам исто така точна информација колку моментално луѓе работат во Осломе, мислам дека се над 1000 луѓе. Една фотоволтаична електрана, например, во неја може да работат и 10 и 20 само работници, да кажем, и инженери.
Многу помалку, да.
Многу помалку и мислам дека нашиот премиер денеска најави дека сите работници нема значи транзиција ќе биде правична, дека сите работници кои ќе бидат вишок во даден момент кога ќе се, да кажеме, ќе се реориентираат термоелектраните и тие објекти, дека ќе бидат веќе згрижени во други енергетски објекти. Затоа што реално е штета веќе обучени луѓе да не продолжат да работат. Често пати имаме дебата со екологистите дека можеби тие луѓе треба да се вратат на село, да има екотуризам и така натаму. Тоа е во ред за луѓето кои не се обучени, но реално за инженерите, за техничарите
секако тоа би била многу сериозна загуба.
Да.
Колку е Македонија напред? Ветено беше или се правеа заложби во последниве година-две со почетокот на војната во Украина, уште повеќе се забрза тој процес на транзиција на нечистата енергија кон обновливи чисти извори. Иако многу години се загубени овде, свесни сме во земјата, тоа се разбира, можеше да се случи и многу порано. Какви се сега условите? Дали е поедноставен тој процес не само за големи инвеститори, туку и за индивидуалците?
Не дека имаме загубени години. Фотоволтаичните технологии реално беа многу скапи. До пред година-две времето за враќање на инвестицијата беше до 12 години. Сега реално таа е намалена многу, некаде под 6 години и стана достапна за, да кажеме, и за домакинствата и за луѓето кои немаат голем капитал. Се знае дека за Македонија е многу природно да има дистрибутивно производство на електрична енергија. Тоа значи дека големите електрани си го прават своето, збориме за фотоволтаичните електрани, но сепак и малите капацитети, да кажеме, на објектите кои се административни згради или на домовите, сега веќе доаѓаат до израз и можат да се прават. Но во секој случај на Македонија, освен соларната или сончевата енергија, како да ја кажеме, фотоволтаиците или електрична енергија што се произведува, ни е потребно и да имаме енергија за балансирање. Тоа може засега да го
Што значи тоа?
Тоа значи дека таа енергија што се произведува од фотоволтаиците е само во текот на денот. И тогаш имаме пикови во производството. Нас ни треба енергија за балансирање, како е што е енергијата од гасните електрани, од, да кажеме, од јагленот. Западот, високо развиените нуклеарни земји, тоа го прават со нуклеарната енергија. Значи, реално, енергетскиот систем е еден комплексен систем кој во себе мора да ги офати сите овие сегменти ако сакаме да станеме независна, енергетски независна земја.
Тоа е тоа кон што тежнеат повеќето земји сега, откако енергијата што доаѓаше од Русија се почна да се користи како оружје. Дали ако земјиве се уште работат на моменти на меѓусебно поврзување на системите за размена на енергија, за продажба или за излегување во пресрет, дали сте вие задоволна од соработката во научниот сектор во регионов за да овој процес оди синхронизирано за повеќето земји од Западен Балкан?
Европската комисија реално подпомага со европски проекти токму во таа област, во науката, во истражувањата, во обновливите извори на енергија. Јас и мојот тим веќе неколку години, можеби 10 години, работиме европски проекти во програмата Horizon, каде што цел на тие проектни активности ни се всушност обуката на образован кадар, инженери и техничари за обновливи извори на енергија. И реално таа соработка ни е, барем така како што ги бараат овие европски проекти, ни е поврзана и со регионот, но и со високо развиените земји во Европа. Например, сега сме во една фаза на подготовка на дигитален регистар, каде што ќе бидат внесени сите работници од Македонија и од регионот кои работат, кои може да инсталираат фотоволтаични електрани и други типови на обновливи извори. Значи, кога станува збор за науката и за истражувањето, секогаш имаме добри контакти и во регионот и со високо развиените земји во Европа.
Имаме ли доволно кадар?
Па имаме. Ние имаме неколку факултети во државата кои обучуваат да кажеме инженери за обновливи извори на енергија. Јас доаѓам од еден од нив, тоа е факултетот за електротехника и информациски технологии. Се повеќе во средните училишта има делови од програмите насочени на обновливи извори на енергија. Иако морам да кажам дека станува збор за многу комплексна материја. Значи овде тоа не може да го работи само електроинженер или не може да го работи само машински инженер или пак во средно училиште тоа да биде дел од една струка. Значи станува збор за широко интердисциплинарна област која е многу значајна да тие што ќе сакат да се обучат во таа област, да ги имаат широките познавања.
И ке можеме ли да ги задржиме во земјата?
Тоа прашање често ми го поставуваат, особено од кога почнавме да даваме државни акредитации, да кажеме, на луѓето со средно образование, на инженерите за обновливи извори на енергија. Знаете, ние мораме да ги обучуваме младите луѓе, па не само младите, и сите други и техничари и инженери кои сакат да напредуваат во таа област. Реално, интелектуалната миграција е светски проблем. Луѓето мигрираат од едно место на друго. Прашањето е колку ние можеме да донесеме друга работна сила во нашата држава.
Дали ќе биде во две насоки или само во една насока?
За сега јас мислам дека е во една насока. За да биде во две насоки, тоа е еден комплексен проблем каде што државните институции треба да го имаат предвид од прибирањето на странски студенти во државата, да можат слободно да аплицираат, да можеме да ги запишеме на нашите универзитети, да имаме студиски програми на англиски, каде што тие ќе можат да дојдат и да останат. Истото важи и за работниците. Доста компании велат, оние големи компании во Македонија велат дека им недостасува работна сила, но се уште има пречки да донесат, да увезат, да кажеме, работна сила од други земји.
И тоа е се во вечерашната Клан дебата посветена на енергетската транзиција, забрзана прилично по војната во Украина. Но и на обидите овој процес да не запостави ниту една заедница во општеството, да биде правичен за сите. Јас ви благодарам за вниманието и пријатна вечер ви посакувам.